ado.
Yes.
A very good afternoon to one and all present here. A big warm welcome to my dear friend Partha. Mr. Partha Roy is from Kolkata, works with physics, very passionate director of his institute. Absolutely passionate. I've never met anybody as passionate as Partha. I know because 4 months, Partha, you have demonstrated that passion in physics. And thank you so much, Partha, for accepting to do a program for Bangalore Sahodaya. There has been a tremendous response, Partha. The moment we put up your poster, almost 800 plus people have registered. See, that is the keenness with which people want to listen to you. I have listened to you enough, and I know what you are. What a wonderful presenter. Not only presenter, the passion with which you drive physics in your school, and to anybody who you come across. You have given me so many support systems for my school also during our 4 months of stay. I know that, and thank you so much once again. Welcome on behalf of Bangalore Sahodaya to this training program this afternoon. We also welcome on behalf of the Bangalore Sahodaya all the participants who are coming in now. I know Saturday afternoon and morning classes, but still we will be admitting people, but we don't want to delay Partha's presentation. So almost about 170 people seem to have come in. We will begin, and I think they will be admitted as and when they come. Thank you once again, Partha, and on behalf of all of us, big welcome to my wonderful friend and great person to know. Thank you, Partha, once again.
Thank you for having me.
I'll request Mrs. Shobha Rajiv to read the profile and present Partha to our viewers, and after which Partha will take over. Yes, please, Shobha.
Yeah. A very good afternoon, and thank you so much, Vasanti. So I'll carry on from here, and I'll do this profile of, it's a one, so I'll try to shorten it because his achievements in such a short span of time is. So the privilege of introducing for the day, Mr. Partha Pratim Roy, in teaching, and I will be giving only a gist as sir has contributed in many field of physics, and his achievements are tremendous. So it will take a long time. I'm sure everybody would like to listen to him speak for a greater length of time.
Okay, so can I start? Can I?
Shobha, have you finished? Shobha, are you there? May I know if Shobha is done with her presentation?
No, that means it's not audible.
Yeah, not audible.
Hello,
wasn't very audible, Shobha.
Yeah.
So if you can please.
No, there is too much of. Now, can I start?
You may, please.
Yeah. I started, I didn't know whether I was live. Thank you.
Voice is breaking.
Roy, principals, teachers, and all the participants. Am I audible, Vasant?
Yes, yes, you are. Yes, yes. Voice is breaking though.
Voice is breaking, but you're audible.
Yes.
I had the privilege of introducing the speaker for the day, Mr. Partha Pratim Roy, who's a distinguished Fulbright awardee in teaching. I'll be giving only a gist as sir has contributed immensely in the field of physics, and his achievements are tremendous, which will take a long time to enumerate. And I'm sure we will like to listen to him speak for a greater length of time. Sir has done his post-graduation in physics from University of Calcutta in 1990. At present, he's the head of Department of Physics at South Point High School, Calcutta. His areas of interest has been epistemology and discourse of science teaching, metacognition in discovery teaching and learning, development of scientific creativity and innovation in children, human brain and mechanism of learning. From the year 1979 to 1987, the Partha has been a recipient of National Scholarship award from the Government of India. Admission to Part 3 of Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics, Cambridge, England, UK. So, learning project held in Red. The project had won second grand award in team category. So won MIT Mind Planets are named after two winners. Then, Mr. Partha was nominated and selected for the full by the India Educational Foundation. He has mentored and supervised international science engineering project held in San Jose, California, USA. These projects won grand award, third award in team category in engineering, and fifth award in chemistry. He has mentored and supervised two more final projects of Team India at Intel International Science and Engineering Festival held in San Jose, California, USA. In the year 2011, Sir was awarded the Fulbright Award by the State Fulbright for USA.
Extremely talented.
Sir in the teaching of physics at South Point High School, Calcutta. He's also been invited as an expert by Indian National Television Channel for educational programs in physics since the year 2000. He's also been invited by various universities in
Shobha ma'am, you're not audible. I think you have been muted. You have to unmute.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, we can.
But there's been a lot of disturbance, the way. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Please, you carry on.
I mean, from the beginning or just?
No, you can continue, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Sir has been a member of Board of Studies in Physics in the West Bengal Council of Higher Secondary Education, so which has included curriculum reform and development, supervision of textbooks writings for grade 11 and 12, and framing guidelines for paper setters and examiners. He's also been invited as an expert in physics for the NCERT orientation program for higher secondary teachers, organized by the West Bengal Council of Higher Secondary Education. Sir has also been the member organizing committee for workshop cum seminar on school physics and an International Year of Physics initiative funded by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, and SN Bose National Center for Basic Sciences, Kolkata. Sir has also been from 2006 to 10, he has been the creator and coordinator, Spark, a program for development of scientific innovative aptitude among children at Nehru Children's Museum, Kolkata, India. And his programs includes devising low-cost scientific experiments for self-learning and supervising innovative and original project works done by children of middle and high schools. He's also been a person at the regional Bal Shri camp organized by National Bal Bhavan, New Delhi. He's also been invited and participant in the International Conference on Recent Developments on Theoretical Physics organized by the Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. And he's also been a visiting lecturer in physics at the Ramakrishna Mission Vidyalaya, West Bengal. Sir has also been the member of the editorial board for publication of Igniting Young Minds, Volume 2, the proceedings of the National Workshop cum Seminar on School Physics 2009, funded by Indian Space Research Organization and Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. Sir has also been prejudging expert for project screening and approval at the International Science and Engineering Fair 2010, held at San Jose, California, from June 9th to 14, 2010. So I welcome you, sir, and it's been an honor and pleasure to have you. Sir has also been he is a lifetime member of the American Association of Physics Teachers. He's a lifetime member of Indian Association of Physics Teachers and lifetime member of Indian Physical Society. It's a great pleasure and honor to have you with us on behalf of Sahodaya. Thank you so much.
First of all, thank you for having me and for the very kind introduction. Without any further discussion, I will move on to my presentation, and I shall put off my video and just begin the sharing of my slides. But before I do that, I have a request that I will have some slides where I will like to have your response, whatever you think about the question that I put in the slides. So please put in that response in the chat box, and that will help me in proceeding with the presentation. So I think with that, I can now start sharing my screen and stop my video. Okay, so the title of today's presentation is Constructivist Pedagogy in Science Teaching. So I think all of you are aware that the National Curriculum Framework 2005 is mostly based on the constructivist pedagogy in education. And if you recall the first introductory foreword written by Professor Joshpal, then you will find that he has elaborated what constructivist pedagogy is. So let me start my discussion by presenting a picture. So can you recognize the animal in the picture? So you put your answer in the chat box. Yeah. Okay, so I think all of you have got it right. Someone wrote cow, someone writes. Okay. Okay, so majority of you are writing it correct. Fine. So actually, as you all put it correct, that it is a dog. Now the question is, why do I put this picture before us? Basically, the picture is not well contoured, well presented. Some dots, bits and pieces are there. And what is going on in our mind when we are trying to figure it out? So this is where something called constructivism comes. once again, let me show you a list of 24 words for 20 seconds. I think many of you have gone through this kind of tests, but still, let me check it once again. It will remain there for 20 seconds. Okay, so now try to recall and write as many words as you can on a piece of paper. I'm giving you a few minutes. So basically the purpose is to motivate ourselves towards a certain kind of a thinking. So that's why all these tests are designed. Okay, now there are 4 answers. Please see those answers and put in your reply the option in the chat box. Okay, so I've got only one answer. Okay, many answers are there. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Actually, the answer is 4. Neither of the words sleep and needle are there on the list, but many of you have. If you see that, just see the numbers. See the words. Neither sleep nor needle are there. So what was happening? So the option 4 is correct. So what was happening when you were trying to recall them? Many of you got the answer 3. Some of you got it 4. Some of you got 1, 2, etc. So the question is that whenever you are trying to recall, you are actually trying to pull in, trying to find out from your memory all those things, all those words which are related to all those 24 words. Those 24 words have something to relate to sleep, something to relate to needle. That's why our mind was trying to find out those words from our memory. Likewise, when I put the picture of the dog, which was not easily recognizable as a dog if you have not seen this picture earlier. So then also our mind was trying to, our brain was trying to figure out things from the bits and pieces of information that we already have. So what was happening there? So this is the picture where I tried to show how different bits and pieces gets connected in our brain. So it tries to relate present observations with past things, past images. So based on the past experience, it tries to develop hypotheses to logically arrive at a decision. So we were trying to arrive at a decision in case of the picture of the dog, as well as in the picture in the list of 24 numbers, which one should be the correct answer. So based on what? Based on what we already have in our brain. And it changes past knowledge if the present explanation is found to be wrong after testing, right? So after testing, it changes itself. It tries to figure out a different methodology. So what happens? Actually, our brain tries to construct knowledge from previous concepts and present observations. So basically, when we talk about constructivist teaching and learning, we are actually trying to tell ourselves that when the students are sitting in my class, we should not think that they are there to learn things from me. In most of the cases, we, the teachers, have this kind of a prejudice that the students are there to learn from me. So the process of learning doesn't begin with the teacher. The process of learning begins with exposure to the environment, interaction with the society, interaction with happenings around in the nature, in surroundings. And so this is where we are now trying to figure out how these things, which are written in different instruction sets, are actually implementable inside a classroom. So in my talk, I will try to figure out this process. I will try to understand this process and present it before you. And then I will give a kind of a demonstration in relation to certain areas of physics. I will pick out some area from lower class and some area from the higher secondary, that is the +2 level. However, things are mostly basic in nature that I am going to describe. So let us first understand what actually constructivism is. The first thing is called schema. What is a schema? Whenever we develop some kind of a thinking in our brain, all the bits and pieces are organized in a structure that psychologists term as schema. Then what do? From there, we always test that schema. How do we test? Do we test consciously? No. Whenever you have, suppose you are trying to invest some part of your salary to some place. How do you take a decision? Do you get some training? Do you go to some place, listen to a teacher and do that? Possibly no. You discuss with people. You have your own ideas about this thing, discussing with family members, and then you try to proceed. But you already have some kind of a feeling about investment in your mind. Then what do? You start investing, have some experience, and then decide that this investment is bad. So likewise, you test schema. So after testing schema, what do? Do you get some expected result? If you test your schema, do you get some expected result? Suppose you thought that if I invest in this kind of a fund, I am going to have a lot of money. Are you getting expected result? If yes, then you assimilate that process. Try to understand that this is the process that I have to learn better, and I will keep doing that. But if it is no, then what do? Then we develop a new schema. Try to accommodate to the situation, try to adjust to the situation, and develop the new schema, and then once again go back to test that new schema. So this is the process that goes on even inside a class. So when we are going to teach something, then what happens? The students are not sitting there with a blank set of mind. They have a lot of experience about that thing. So what do we think about those experiences? In most of the cases, although after so much of discussion, so much of workshops, so much of training and learning, now we know what is to be done. But still, in our country, if we go from school to school, we will find that we are not doing the right thing all the time. Actually, we start thinking that the students can only give a correct answer or a wrong answer when I am going to teach a subject. Just try to understand one thing. That is, the student is there with a schema already built inside his or her brain. So whenever I am placing something before the student tries to match that new information with his or her schema. It is not something that the student is planning to do. It is something that nature has designed. Our brain is designed like that. So that's why the student always try to figure out all the new things on the basis of what is there already in his or her schema. And if there are 40 students in a class, there may be 40 different kinds of schema present in 40 different brains. And all of these schemas are trying to fit into the new thing that you are going to present. And all of them will finally, all of them will, if you please mute yourselves, that will be advantageous for me. So now, if you are going to listen to the students, if you listen to the students, you will try to know how the students are thinking. Actually, this is a cycle that was put by a psychologist, James Joule. It starts from the right hand side. Look at this right hand side, concrete experience. It is the hindbrain. If you look at your brain, the structure of your brain, then the spinal cord starts from the hindbrain. And this part is the oldest part of our brain. And this always receives the signals first. That is the concrete experience. And in case of humans, the front brain is the major development. Look at the front brain, there is the abstract hypothesis. So first of all, there is a concrete experience about anything. Even today, when we are grown-up persons, we are encountering anything new. Suppose you are driving a car and you already know that if I go along this road, there will be congestion. So I have to avoid this road. So how do you get this idea? Who have taught you? You have got it from your concrete experience. And from your concrete experience, what do? You have got a reflective observation. You reflect on yourself, take a decision. And after that decision, you develop some hypothesis. What is your hypothesis? Your hypothesis is that that road goes through the office area, and office area is crowded in this part of time. So I should not go through that office area. So this is your abstract hypothesis. And from that abstract hypothesis, finally, you test that, and finally you come back to concrete experience once again, because if through testing, active testing of that hypothesis may fail someday. Someday you have planned, your friend has come to your house and you are taking your friend to visit some place, and there was a shortcut through the office area. You avoided that office area and tried to take some other route, which you thought, according to your abstract hypothesis, is the correct route, but finally got stuck. So that is an active testing of your hypothesis. So even in the classroom, whenever a student is going to learn anything new, then the student should have a concrete experience. Just listening to something does not help. What is a concrete experience? Just seeing is not concrete experience. I am seeing something. I am seeing something is not a concrete experience. I am a part of that. Please mute yourself. There is some noise coming in. So I am a part of something. If the student is not part of something, then the student can't have concrete experience. So we have to see whether we are able to give our students some concrete experience inside the classroom, and then take the student through this process, through this cycle of learning, because this is not something that we have designed. This is a discovery from psychology and neuroscience, and we are actually trying to follow this science of learning. Okay, but what most of us do, including myself, we think more about content, less about students learning. We just try to organize things. If somebody is going to teach physics, the person is trying to see books of higher level, trying to make concrete notes where there are so many informations which are not there in the students' textbooks. If I can give them a lot of information, a lot of extra things, that will be good teaching. We think that. In case of biology, I have seen that if something is there in the textbook, that is not considered as sufficient. People always try to bring in a lot of things from higher level books, and then we start thinking that our teaching is becoming very good. This is our basic approach. Then as teachers, we talk more and listen less. We don't allow conversations to proceed inside a classroom. I'm not mentioning exceptions, but actually what most of us do, including myself. And we always remain focused on completing the syllabus. This is something very sacred to us. That, have you completed the syllabus? Yes, I have completed the syllabus and I am happy. Have our students learned? I don't know. After the exam, we will check. But what is an assessment? Assessment should be there throughout. There cannot be any teaching without any assessment. There are assessments before teaching, there are assessments during teaching, and as well as assessments after teaching. So all these assessments should be there, integrated in the process of teaching. So while I am teaching somebody, there are lots of assessments that I have to make. Otherwise, how can I control the progress of learning of the students, not just teaching? Then what do we believe? Believe that students will learn only if they pay attention to my lecture. The students who are not paying attention to my lecture cannot learn. We believe that. We assume that only good students are able to learn. We term some students as good. This is inbuilt amongst ourselves. How do you know that somebody is good or bad? We have seen. I had a lot of students who were never quote unquote good in school, but they are doing great jobs. Their names have figured in, they are featured in Forbes magazine's 30 under 30 list, 30 young change agents of the world. But they were never so-called good students in school. And we take decisions based on perceptions, not on real data. We don't perform action research in our classrooms during our teaching. We always develop ideas based on perception. Inside the teachers' rooms, we start passing comments about students without actually doing some scientific investigation or statistical survey or statistical study of what is happening in a class. We always say that this is a bad section of students, that is a good section of students. I am getting all the classes in good sections. That person is getting all the classes in bad sections. So all these good and bad are all based on perceptions, not on real data. And data, if we are actually taking into account they are summative data based on final examinations, not on real experimental situations. So what most of us don't do, we don't try to understand how learning is happening inside a student, try to investigate why a student is finding a task difficult, and up a learning society inside the classroom. Actually, we sometimes hear this term called ecosystem. So the learning ecosystem is something that is already there. Suppose a student, I have seen, I am telling you one story, that I was going to shop in a market, in a local municipal market, where some people from the local villages used to come and sell their produces, sell their vegetables. And there one lady used to come with her very little child. And I asked that lady, is that child not going to school? Yes, yes, he is going to school. Then as years passed, the child was growing up. I am finding that the child is most of the days present with his mother. I asked that what is happening to him. Then she said that he is not doing better in the school. He is failing in maths, so and English. So after failing twice in the same class, the school has driven him out, or rather now that driving out thing is not there, but that mother thought that it is better that his child is sitting with her in the market. And later on, I have found that child is actually handling this marketing business so efficiently and calculating all those things, all the things that some person has taken some chili of this amount, some person has taken some brinjal of this amount, some has taken something of that amount, and every time very fast calculation is being done by the child. Although those very problems, those very questions came to that child as questions in the school. In the school, when he was in the junior classes, in which he actually failed, the questions were like that. A person buys this amount of things of this rate of price, and that then another kind of vegetables of this price, of this amount, and so on and so forth. Then how much should that person be paid, etc., etc. But that boy could not pass in that exam. But now what is he doing? So everything is not learned from school. So the learning process is something that there is a learning ecosystem, and this learning ecosystem helps us to learn a lot of things. So when a student is coming to school, we have to understand how this learning ecosystem works. Now, I am showing you the result of some research. It is a very easy question from Newton's third law. A very easy question. The truck is out of order and it is being pushed from behind by a small car, right? A large truck breaks down and this small compact car is pushing it forward. Then there are a few questions. Look at the nature of the questions. After the car reaches the constant cruising speed at which its driver wishes to push the truck, A, the amount of force with which the car pushes on the truck is equal to that with which the truck pushes back on the car. The amount of force with which the car pushes on the truck is smaller than with which the truck pushes back on the car. Then the amount of force with which the car pushes on the truck is greater, and so on and so forth. Now, what will be the answer? The answer is that the force that a small car applies on the truck is same as the force that the truck applies on the small car, according to Newton's third law. But what happened? When this question was distributed, what happened? I am going to tell you. There is another question of this sort. In this question, there are two persons A and B, and they are pushing one another, and it is the same Newton's third law kind of a question. I have given you a view of these questions because there are 30 such questions in this questionnaire. These two people, David Hastings and Ibrahim Halaun, they are people of Arizona State University. They devised this force concept inventory, a questionnaire of 30 questions, which are all of similar types. No mathematical work, nothing, only conceptual understanding of very simple things. And this person, Eric Mazur, applied these tests to Harvard students and was surprised to find out the very poor performance of the Harvard students. Do you know what did I do? I have taken this 30 students questionnaire to IIT Kharagpur people or different IIT people through some of my friends. And my experience was not also good. The problem is that whenever people are trying to answer questions in a way that is related to everyday life, then people are not being able to answer them correctly, even if they are successful otherwise in answering, in cracking different tough examinations and all that. And this is the reason why in most of the cases, our brilliant students are following the thoughts of other people in other parts of the world. They are very good followers, but not that great leaders in the field of thinking, in the field of innovation, in the field of creating new knowledge. And here I have made myself my Center for Physics Education Research have made a study, and this is one graph for that study. You can see that there are 30 questions, and these 30 questions are given to classes 9-10 students, classes 11-12 students, as well as to teachers. The blue color is of 9-10 students. The orange color is for 11-12 students, and this is for teachers. What do we find? Are we finding that there is any major difference in vis-a-vis all the questions among the students and teachers? Yes, in relation to one or two questions there are. Look at question number 12. In question number 12, the teachers are performing better. But in the other questions 23, questions 24, 25, 26, question number 16, look at question number 16, question number 11, right? Look at other questions. Are our teachers doing better than the students? Try to think of the questions that I have presented. These are the format of the questions. So why are the people not being able to answer it correctly? Even if these questions are so simple, because we are not learning things. We are not learning things the way it should be learned, the way it should be understood in tune with the process of the brain, in tune with the process of the mind. So as you all know that learning is both an individual process as well as a social process. So we have to allow both these processes in the case of a classroom if we want our children to be better learners than we were. So what should we do for that? We should not just keep talking to them. We should not just keep transferring what we know to them. We should not just make our learning material heavier to look it better to the children. This damage is being done by the coaching institutes. The JEE and all coaching institutes are damaging the thought process of our children like anything. They are not allowing this thing, and they are claiming success. This is no success. If I have 1 million students in my enrollment, and if 1,000 of them are getting selected, then in terms of the mathematics of probability, my failure is to be championed instead of my success. However, I'm not going to speak against anyone here. I'm just trying to focus on the method of learning, and this constructivism will help our children to figure out things which they are not accustomed with earlier, so that their competency to understand new things develops inside the classroom. So as the learners make sense of their experience, we have to allow the learners to make sense of their experience. We have to allow them to seek the meaning of what they are learning in the environment, not just seeing it in the board, or nowadays in the smart board. Smart board is in no way anything new than the old board. We have to make use of every device by making a proper planning. And in the learning process, learner always create and test theories. You can't see them. In my class, I don't see that they are creating theories and they are actually testing them. We don't see that, but they do that, like we do that. Whenever we discuss about anything inside staff room amongst our colleagues, we actually create a lot of theories. We test them, then we take a decision. This is the process of learning everywhere in life. And knowledge is context dependent. Context dependent means where, in which situation, in which culture the students are embedded. That is very, very important. So, and social interactions that I told you already, that I have mentioned. Now, let me move on to some kind of a very specific thing about science. I am talking about the IL mechanism that is called Investigative Science Learning Environment. What is that? I will show some demonstration of this.
तू मैथ्स करना शुरू कर दे.
Okay, what is
परसों पेपर है देखो.
Okay, please mute yourself. Okay, now constructivist learning in an investigative science learning environment. This was actually, I worked with this group of people who are in Rutgers University in USA. There is one professor called Eugenia Etkina. She worked on this and I participated in that and contributed in developing this thing. So what are the components of this science learning environment? I will elaborate on that. There are three components. First is inductive and hypothetico-deductive reasoning that is developing among the students. What is that? I will move on to that. Inductive means from experience, from hands-on experience, students develop some kind of reasoning and develop some hypothesis. Then use of representational tools, that is pictures, graphs, force diagrams, circuit diagrams, etc. Their students are getting trained in using that. And then development of scientific competencies, that is making, identifying assumptions, recording, analysis of data, and all that. So these three are the three components of I mechanism. Let me elaborate on that. It is based on experiments. What are those experiments? Number one, observational experiment. What is an observational experiment? If you try to think about the discovery of Zeeman effect, those who are in chemistry and physics, you know the Zeeman effect. Or if you are in biology, just think of the discovery of cells by Robert Hooke. What is that? That was an observational experiment. Something people observed for the first time and reported it to other people. In these cases, people did not know what is happening. They did not know what is happening, what is the reason, They did not know. But they knew that these things exist for the first time. These are called observational experiments. So these things can happen to a child also when the child is seeing something for the first time. The teacher might have seen this thing earlier because teacher is older in age, but for the child, this is the first time that the child is seeing. Then there comes the testing experiments. So after the observation experiments, what is done? After someone observes something, then why are things like that? People try to build a hypothesis. People try to build a reasoning. People try to build some kind of a logic. And whether that logic is correct, they test it. And then after the testing, if the logic is found to be correct, then it is applied. So here, observational experiments are the experiments that help students construct new ideas. Students observe and collect data without making predictions. They generate, I'm moving faster because I want to demonstrate things, certain things. There are testing experiments. If needed, I can move on to these things later on. But first, let me move on to some new sharing. I am stopping this sharing now and moving on to a new sharing. Okay, so look at this. I think all of you can see this. Fine. So
Yes, we can see it.
let me first perform an experiment. Okay. First, let me put a 50 gram weight on this. So it will become gradually stable, right? First, it becomes stable. Very good. So what was the length of this spring? The length of this spring was this blue line, right? Okay. Now, it has come to an equilibrium. And what is the equilibrium line? This is the equilibrium line. Okay. Now, I can ask our students to check what is the length by which it has increased from 30 to, all of you can check, to say 38. So 8 centimeter it has increased. So when we are actually trying to devise some observational experiment for students, please don't demonstrate things to the students. Allow them to do it themselves. Because I have done many demonstration lectures in different places. Do you know what the students do? Students in large number, they attend those lectures like they are seeing a magician performing some magic before their eyes. So long they are seeing them, they are listening to my explanations, they are enjoying that. But when the lecture is over, when the students go back home, then the whole takeaway is just like remembering a magic show kind of a thing. But we have to put in a kind of a pedagogical value into all these demonstrations. When can a scientific activity embed a pedagogical value? Only when the students are allowed to measure something, when they are told to measure something like this. So if you put 50 gram, then it is increasing by a length of 8 centimeters. Very good. Now let me ask one question. So for an increase of 1 centimeter, how much of weight is to be hung? If for 50 gram, 8 centimeter is the increase, then for 1 centimeter increase, how much of weight is to be hung? (50 gram), 8 centimeter for 50 gram. So 1 centimeter for 8 and 50. Will it be 12? Will it be 12 gram? I don't think so. 8 centimeter for 50, then 1 cent, yes, 6.25, right. You are right, 6.25. Great. So what is your assumption? Is if you tell your students that what is your assumption, is your conclusion correct? If you ask the student, is your conclusion correct? Then what is the student thinking? For example, when it is increasing, then you have not put a 1 gram body, you have not put a 1 gram body there in this spring, you haven't put, but you have concluded, right? You haven't put a 6.25 gram body, you haven't put a 6.25 gram body onto the spring. But what will happen? You have concluded. How do you know? How have you made your prediction? You have made a prediction, right? So can you make a prediction that if you put 100 gram, then how much will the increase be? If this is your theory, you have put in a theory. You have observed something, and on the basis of observation, you have made a hypothesis. You have made a hypothesis. Unitary method, yes. Yes, unitary method. When is unitary method applicable? When is unitary method applicable? When things happen uniformly. When things happen uniformly, then you have assumed that if I put on weights, the spring moves, spring expands uniformly. Yes, the spring expands uniformly. This is your hypothesis. So when a student is handling this thing, and if you ask a student that why do you conclude that for 1 centimeter increase, you have to hang 6.25 gram, then the student will try to argue, try to develop some hypothesis, try to put before you some hypothesis. The students in a group, they will try to give you this hypothesis that, ma'am, it is because it is uniformly increasing. So have you checked whether it is uniformly increasing or not? Have you examined? No, ma'am, I have not examined. Then how can you test your experiment? So first thing is observational experiment, that for 50 gram, no, everything else is constant, cannot be a logic. Because if you are hanging a rubber band, you can try this. Instead of the spring, you hang a rubber band, 50 gram rubber band, and hang a 50 gram body to a rubber band. The rubber band suppose increases by 10 centimeter. Then you ask somebody that for 1 centimeter, how much is the weight needed, right? Then 50 gram, 10 centimeter, so 5 gram is needed, right? Then you ask, if I hang 100 gram, then how much will be the increase? Then they will say that if 10 centimeter for 50 gram, then 20 centimeter for 100 gram. Then if you hang 100 gram, you will never see that it will be 20 centimeter. For a rubber band, it will never be 20 centimeter. It depends on which material you are using. So these things a student should learn from experiments only. So this very concept of elasticity can be taught only if you are, please check here. Let me Let me stop it first. Okay. Actually, there is another. Let me check. What is the expected length? If for what is the expected length at which it will become stable? (16 centimeter). Okay. If it is 16 centimeter, let me check. Let me check if it is 16. So how much is that? 30, 40, 45. Look, 16. 16. I have stopped it, and it has stopped exactly at the equilibrium position. It is stopped at equilibrium position. So it is 16. So our theory is getting applied to this thing. And the student has performed this experiment as a testing experiment. So previous experiment was an observational experiment. From the observational experiment, the student has devised some theory. And then from here, there is an increase of 16 that you predicted. And it is happening like that. But if then you give the student some different activity where you ask them to perform the same experiment with a rubber band, if they try to develop same kind of an argument, they will fail. So then what will you do? From the testing experiment, what will they learn? They will learn that my hypothesis is wrong. So then they will know that it is dependent on the. I have not minimized my screen. My screen is there. I am sharing this screen. It is not minimized. Okay. So this is what actually I wanted to show as a testing experiment. So previous one was the observation experiment where I used only 50 gram, but this can be done with several other weights. And on the basis of that, some observational conclusion can be done. Some theory can be made. And the testing experiment is where that theory is tested. And if the student is testing it in his or her own hand, then the student learns the very importance of material, that the materials behave differently under different situations. This is something that the students learn only when they, but as you keep on telling all those facts on the board, if you keep showing these graphs on the board, the student tries to memorize. But when they handle these things, measure these values themselves, this can be done. Likewise I'm doing this, the simulation that I'm using is made by University of Colorado Physics Education Research Group, and with which the University of Maryland Research Group has also collaborated. Then there comes the application experiment that I have also told. What is an application experiment? Then you can ask the student to use spring as a mass measuring device. You can then ask the students to use the spring as a mass measuring device. That can you calibrate a spring as a mass measuring device? Then the student will figure it out, and that will be a project that the student will make. They will apply their knowledge to make a device. So in this way, we can use one thing to do something else. And these are the processes, the spring animation that I have just now shown. And I have shown you application experiments, experiments that help students apply tested ideas to solve practical problems, right? Similarly, testing experiments, experiments that help students test the ideas, explanations they have constructed on the basis of observation experiment. Before conducting the experiment, the student make predictions on the basis of hypothesis that the students have made predictions that it will increase by 16 centimeter. So if this explanation is correct, I do such and such, etc. So this is the testing experiment, this is the application experiment, and we have done the spring animation. Now let me come to another demonstration using a spring. Archimedes principle, all of you know about Archimedes principle. I have performed this experiment. Please follow carefully. I have taken this video with my own mobile phone, and there is a voiceover. Please check whether you can hear or not.
Voice is not loud enough.
Okay, there is a spring balance, and that spring balance is measuring the weight of hanging marble block. Please check the. Now you can check the reading. It is 75. It is one mark beyond 75.
Oh my God.
So each individual mark is 5 grams. So it is 80. Is the container, and the kitchen balance reads 500 gram. There is water up to this level, and the whole weight is 500 gram. We are placing the marble inside this water. And we will measure both the readings. Level of water has risen. This is the new level of water. I will draw the new level of water. New level of water. Now we'll check the readings. What is the reading here? 55. Each division is 5, so it is 55. Look at this. Earlier it was 80, now it is 55. It is 525. So simultaneously we have measured two readings. One increased, another decreased. Now we will remove this marble. We are removing this marble. removing this marble, water level has come down. Water level has come down. Gone back to 500. It has gone back to 500. So water is being poured. So I am pouring just up to the final level. Okay, done. Just up to the final level. Yes, previously this rise was there, but not by pouring water. Previous rise was not by pouring water. This time rise is by pouring water. So let us check what is the reading. 525. So previous increase was also 525. The present increase is also 525, but the previous increase was during immersion of the marble block, not by pouring water, but present increase is 25 gram increase is by pouring physical water. Okay, so now look at this. Weight of the marble block while none of us know what Archimedes principle is. We don't know. We are just observing certain things and taking readings. So what is that? Weight of the marble block while hanging in air, 80 gram weight. And weight of the marble block while immersed in water, 55 gram weight. Loss in weight, 25 gram weight. That is observed. We have all seen that. Then initial reading of the kitchen balance, 500 gram weight. Reading of kitchen balance after the marble block is immersed, 525 gram weight. And increase in weight is 25 gram weight. So the increase in weight is 25 gram weight. Okay. So now, then what happens? Then look at this. Increase in the reading of the kitchen balance when extra water of exactly same amount as displaced. How do you know that there was some water displaced? The moment you immersed that block, there was some rise. Why was that rise? You have not poured any extra water. That rise was because the marble was displacing, removing some water from its own zone. But now, how much of water has the marble removed? That amount of water you have
equal to the weight of
now
the
poured. Now you have poured. And what is that weight? 25 gram weight. So now
Equal to loss of weight.
right. So now what conclusion can you draw? When a solid body is immersed in a liquid, there is a loss in weight of the solid. This is a fact. No need to read any book. This loss in weight is exactly equal to the weight of the liquid displaced by the solid as it was immersed. So this is something that can be done. I have used here, the experiment took 6 minutes. This can be shortened. And this reading, the students will take these readings. I have worked with students in this kind of situations, and they are very much successful in arriving at the very statement of, right, Archimedes principle on their own, right? But do you know, there are some very interesting experience that I had with many people who are grown-up persons. Actually, the question is like this. Suppose I have 3 different containers. Okay, I will finish in a few minutes and then I will take all the questions. So please bear with me. Suppose I have 3 beakers. I have 3 beakers. In one beaker, there is liquid 1, say water. In another beaker, there is liquid 2, say some oil. And in the third beaker, there is liquid 3, say it is some kind of some glycerin or something like that. So there are 3 different liquids in 3 beakers. And you have a 50-gram block. You have a 50-gram block. You take the 50-gram block, place it in beaker 1. It is floating. By getting half immersed, it is floating by getting half immersed, half outside the liquid, half inside the liquid. Now you take out that block, 50-gram block. Place it in liquid 2. Now it is 2/3 into liquid and 1/3 outside. So in the first, it was half inside liquid, half outside. Now it is 2/3 into liquid, 1/3 outside. Then you take out the block once again and place the same block in the third beaker. Now it is completely up to its roof under the liquid. It is completely immersed. It is not sinking. It has not drowned. It has not sunk, but it is floating, but completely inside the liquid. So in 3 cases, the same block is floating. In one case, half inside liquid. In liquid number 2, 2/3 into liquid, and liquid number 3, completely into liquid but floating. My question is, many of you have written about buoyant force. So in which case is the buoyant force greater? This is the question. In which case is the buoyant force greater? Please put in your answer in the chat box. Okay, first case A, second case, first case, third case, water. Okay, I have got my point, right. Just answer this question. When a block floats, what is the net force acting on the block? When any block floats, what is the net force acting on the block? What is the net force? Yes, it is 0. Yes, it is 0, right. No, net force is 0. Now, who are those 2 forces who are combined to be 0? Who are those 2 forces? One is downward gravity and the other one is buoyant force, right. So in the 3 beakers, is the buoyant force balancing different weights or the same weight? In the 3 beakers, is the buoyant force balancing the same weight or different weight? Same weight. So how come in the 3 beakers have different buoyant forces? How come the 3 beakers have different buoyant forces that you have said that 2 is the greater or 3 is the greater and 1 has the greater? Because you are looking at something else. You are looking at how much of the body is immersed. But that doesn't mean anything. That in every case, the buoyant force is same. Why same? Because in every case they are cancelling with the weight. If the weight is 50 gram weight, then to cancel 50 gram weight, you need always 50 gram weight. To cancel 50 gram weight, you once need 20 gram weight, another time needs 30. It cannot happen. To cancel 50 gram weight force, you need 50 gram weight force, and that is taken for granted. But how come this 50 gram weight force coming from the liquid? How come this 50 gram weight force coming from the liquid? Here you have the answer. Increase in the reading. Look at this 25 gram weight. The level of water increased. It is in, because this increase is the loss in weight. If a liquid is thick, then little increase will make greater weight. And there comes the question of density. So if it is dense, less amount will be displaced. If it is not dense, not so much amount will, not so dense, greater amount will be displaced. But at the end of the day, whatever is displaced, the buoyant force has to be the same. Why is the buoyant force going to be the same? Because it is balancing the same downward force. In three beakers, in all the three beakers, the same downward force of 50 gram weight is to be balanced. In one beaker, by dipping half into the liquid, this balancing 50 gram weight is achieved. In another, by going 2/3 into the liquid, that 50 gram weight is achieved. And in another, by going completely into the liquid, this 50 gram weight is achieved. So why do we need different amount of displaced liquid to achieve the same force? That is due to density. So my question is that whenever we are actually trying to understand or trying to teach Archimedes principle, we wrongly focus our attention to density, we wrongly focus our attention to volume. It is a question of force, balancing of force. And from balancing of force, you have to come out to the concept of density later on. Let me come to another experiment here. Let me take this 2 kg block into the liquid. Okay, 2 kg block will be put into the liquid. Okay. Sorry. Okay, look, from 98, it has gone to, it was 98 liter. Now, when it is put, look what it is becoming. .98 increase, 1.98 increase. So 1.98 liter means 1.98 gram of water it has increased. And look below, the density is given. So if you multiply, you are getting almost 2 kg weight of buoyant force, almost 2 kg weight of liquid displaced, 2 kg of liquid displaced, right? So now if you replace it by another liquid, then what happens? Yes, we have not changed the liquid, but made the block heavier. We are testing what we have examined right now. We are testing. How much has increased from 98? 1 liter, increase in 1 liter. Now what is that density? From 98 to 1 liter means how much? 3. From 98 to 1 liter means 3 liter increase. So 3 into 1.01, so 3 kg. That is displaced liquid is being multiplied by density. So if the density is less, the displaced liquid will be more. If the density is more, the displaced liquid will be less. Right? Now we are changing it to something else. And this is what we have actually wanted to mean. So I'm not continuing with this experiment anymore. An application experiment, on the basis of that, we can design an application experiment. We can tell the students that can you use a spring balance as a density measuring device? Can we use a spring balance as a density measuring device? How can we make a spring balance? We can make a spring balance as a force measuring device. We can make a spring balance as a mass measuring device. Now we can make a spring balance as a density measuring device. Yes. So these can be projects you can give to students. And in this way, such investigative science learning environment can be used inside a classroom. So I had another demonstration for a very abstract topic, but since I have crossed the time, I think instead of sharing, I should now take some questions. I'm not going to that presentation part. That was on another topic, the energy concept, but I'm not going to the energy concept now because I have already completed up to that. If you want that, then I can continue, but still there are so many questions. So I will be very happy to take questions from you.
Partha, how much of time will it take to complete, Partha?
It will be another 15-20 minutes.
The demonstration, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask Vamsi Priya, who's here, and Geeta, are we okay that we can take another 15-20 minutes and finish that?
Yes, ma'am. That's fine, ma'am.
Because, getting Partha is very difficult. So getting the last part through would be good.
I think we can take it because I think the session is
Go
going
ahead,
on.
Partha. We'll be glad to
Okay.
listen.
Okay, thank you very much. So once again, then I am moving on to my sharing of the screen. Okay, this time, earlier that I have discussed was very much applicable to the middle to the 9-10 classes. Up to class 9, you can use the spring related activities, and you can compare those activities with some rubber band or something like that. And you can give them some projects where they can use a spring in kind of different measuring job. But now, something that I'm going to discuss is very, very difficult to understand. It is very difficult to understand. At least I found it very difficult. I have asked many people, and someone of them whom I asked and talked about at length is someone at Bangalore. His name is C.N.R. Rao. You all know them, the Bharat Ratna. In his institute in Jakkur, I talked with him and discussed with him about this concept of energy, and he also expressed the similar views that it is very, very difficult to understand, to express, to teach. So let me see how can we tackle this thing in a better way in a class. Now, first of all, what is energy? If we ask what is energy, then a person is breaking this thing. So does it mean that the person has more energy, or is it more force? It's a very difficult question to answer. When the bricks break, it's the question of force. Otherwise, what does this mean? Instant energy, does this mean that how does the term in energy gets related to this? Another question. And then this thing, we also know that here also in case of boiling of water, we need energy, but where is that energy? How can we get that energy? The basic question is, how do you measure energy? How to measure it? Until and unless you measure it, you don't know what it means. Now, let me move on to something that Richard Feynman taught us. I think all of you know Richard Feynman, the great physicist. Richard Feynman wrote in his lectures in physics, he wrote, there is a fact, or if you wish, a law governing all natural phenomena that are known today. So please, if you please mute yourself, some sound is coming up. Okay, there is a fact, or if you wish, a law governing all natural phenomena that are known today. It states that there is a certain quantity which we call energy that does not change in the manifold changes which nature undergoes. This is the first thing that Richard Feynman writes in his series of books. The very first thing, before teaching anything, before teaching any other thing, he writes this, that in nature so many things happen, and among all those so many things, whenever anything happens, if something is not changing, that is called energy. Find that out. Find that out what is not changing and call that energy. This is what Richard Feynman said. He also said that's the most abstract idea because it's a mathematical principle. There is a numerical quantity which does not change when something happens. Find out, try to find out that. So if you want to understand energy, you have to search for something that is not changing. Don't try to understand before calculating. Don't try to define before understanding, before numerically calculating. You will never understand energy by doing that. So first your job is try to find out. Whenever a process is going on, try to find out what is not changing. Okay. And then he says, it's important to realize that in physics today, we have no knowledge of what energy is. What energy is really, what it is, what thing it is, no one knows. Professor Rao also said the same thing. But Feynman told a very interesting story of Dennis the Menace. The Dennis the Menace is a boy whose mother gave him some, say, 28 blocks to play. And his mother was always checking whether these 28 blocks are intact or not, whether he has lost 28 blocks or not. And he was always losing it here and there. Sometimes his mother finds that instead of 28, there are 32 blocks. Then after inquiry, she found that John came to visit his place and he left his blocks with Dennis. However, his mother was always trying to figure out whether all the blocks are intact, are there or not. So someday his mother found that some blocks are missing. Then he searched outside the building, outside the window, and got them. So every time when some blocks were missing, somewhere or other, his mother was able to find it. But one day, his mother did not find the blocks. She was never finding the blocks. And then she was going to search for the block in the toy box, in the box of toys of Dennis. And Dennis was not allowing his mother to open the toy box. Then how come his mother know that whether there are blocks in the toy box? Say a block weighs 5 grams. When all the blocks are visible, say the box of toys weighs 500 grams. When all the individual blocks are visible outside, say the toy box weighs 500 grams. That means when 500 grams is the weight of the toy box, there is nothing inside the toy box. No block is inside the toy box. So if the box weighs greater, if the toy box weighs greater and some blocks are missing, then his mother devised this formula. number of blocks visible plus mass of the toy box minus 500 gram mass of the toy box, that is the toy increase in toy box, mass of the increased mass of the toy box minus 500 gram, the original mass of the toy box, divided by 50 gram. Sorry, please read this 50 gram as 5 gram. Please read this 50 gram as 5 gram, because I have there is some printing typographical mistake. This 50 should be read as 5 gram, okay? Because one block weighs 5 gram, right? One block weighs 5 gram. So how many blocks are there in the toy box? Mass of the toy box minus 500 gram by 50. So it will be N. N means the number of blocks gifted to Dennis. The number of blocks gifted to Dennis, if it is 28, then the 28 number will be okay. Clear? Someday, even after taking the weight of the toy box, his mother is finding some blocks short. Number of blocks visible counted, mass of the toy box minus 500 gram divided 5 gram calculated, but still the number is not coming to be 28. Then his mother finds that the water in the bathtub has risen, and it is a very dirty water. So what is there inside is not visible, but she could find that the level of water has risen. Say the depth of water in the bathtub is 50 centimeter. Depth of water in the bathtub is 50 centimeter. It increases by 3 centimeter if one block sinks. Right? Then once again, mother devises this formula. Number of blocks visible, mass of the toy box minus 500 gram divided by 5 gram, then depth of water minus 50 centimeter divided by 3 centimeter. Now the number of blocks are coming out to be okay. So what has his mother done? His mother has tried to figure out the total number of blocks given to her son by making some calculations. In all the calculations, in all the parts, what is she calculating? She is calculating whether some blocks are hidden there or not. In the first case, those hidden blocks were found by this formula of mass of the toy box minus 500 by 5. In the second case, by adding some other formula, that is depth of water minus 50 centimeter divided by 3 centimeter, done. Now, please try to imagine a situation where this number of blocks visible are not there. If the number of blocks visible are not there, but somebody is putting forward this very formula, will you be able to figure out what are the things that people are going to measure? Is it at all possible to figure out? Here you can figure out that people are searching for blocks. Now, when these are, and all these terms are actually searching for blocks, but when these two terms are not there, will it be able to figure out what are the things that are being searched? But at the end of the day, the total thing is constant. This is how Richard Feynman told us to look into some mathematical formula that will show us that which is remaining same. What is remaining same? Try to find it out. Let me check it here. Here, there is a cannonball being fired. Look at this. I am showing it a little faster. Look at this. The cannonball has been thrown. It has gone up and come down, right? So try to look at this. The cannonball is fired. It is a phenomenon happening. It is a phenomenon that has happened. Yes. If there is air, then it will not go much up. Yes, it has gone up and come down. It is a process. It is a process. Now, in this process, we will examine certain things. This is the height up to which it has risen. And according to Newtonian dynamics, we know work is force multiplied by displacement. And we know that displacement is final position minus initial position. This is some observational investigation going on. Then what are we getting? During ascent of the cannonball, work, we are calculating work. It is very easy to calculate. Final minus initial position, h minus 0. It is minus mgh minus 0. Then also you know this, right? So the velocity during ascent, initial, final, it is given. So uv, you know. So once again, work is mg. So 0 minus half mv square. You don't know what these terms mean because we are already older persons. We know they are called by some names. But when you are telling the student only knows work. The student doesn't know anything else. You are just giving the student some task and student is doing that with your instruction. So during descent, what is happening? This is work. This thing. Here also the same thing. So this is once again work, right? So you have calculated work. But please try to remember what you have got. I will rewrite these things in my next slide. Okay, look at this. This is during ascent of the cannonball, you have discovered this thing and this thing. Do you remember? During ascent of the cannonball, you have discovered this. During descent of the cannonball, you have discovered this thing. In the previous slide, we have calculated this as well as this. Just try to find out during ascent, something final, some minus something initial in the first as well as in the second. During descent, something final minus something initial in both the relations. Now, if I change the final and initial, I am changing the final and initial as an intermediate thing. During transit from an intermediate position, right, H1 to another intermediate position H2, just I am copying from the already known result, final minus initial. I am just copying from the top thing. I am just copying from the top thing. Once again, if at H1 it has velocity v1 and H2 it has velocity v2, then what are you getting? Once again, I am copying from the second relation in both descent and ascent. From the second relation, I am copying. And on all those relations I have got in the previous slide. So then what are we getting from 1 and 2? Okay, then look at this. I have discovered something like Dennis the Menace's mother. I have discovered some formula which is remaining the same, right? I have discovered some formula which is remaining the same, right? So this can be done. This can be calculated. And only then, once you have discovered thing like that, you can say that this can be called energy. Why do we call this energy? Because these things remain constant. That's why you call energy. But you will not be able to talk about this thing if during the process with friction with air, the cannonball gets hotter. If the temperature of the cannonball increases during this process, then this will never work because something will be there which is not accounted for in this relation. Then you have to change it to some new formula, as Dennis the Menace's mother introduced the bathtub formula. In this way, you have to keep on adding, and this subject goes into the subject of first law of thermodynamics. So the very concept, if it is abstract as well as if it is hands-on, all of these can be done in a different way. The same physics the same science, the same knowledge. Just look at the same thing in a different way. How do we think about the energy thing? We first define energy. Energy is an ability to do work. Can you ever understand yourself? What does this mean in this sentence? Ability to do work. What ability? How do you measure the ability? How are the muscles strong of the person? How do you determine the ability? All these things have no scientific meaning. These are just sentences. The only when they are manifested in terms of mathematical symbols and when they are added, these things are found to be same throughout the process. You call them energy. Otherwise, you can't. This is what we are taught by our great physicists, great scientists, including someone near your place, Professor C.N.R. Rao. So I think that that's all for me for now. But however, there is another thing like that. You can check here also. You can examine some quantities like that, but those quantities are actually spring-related quantities, and in this way you can figure out what energy is, right? The average force applied by the spring is this. You can calculate work in 2 ways. So you are calculating work in the same ways, right? And during this physical process, right, you are finally getting this thing. You are finally getting this thing and getting another very important thing. Something is remaining fixed throughout, right? So these are, I'm stopping my share, and that's all. Now I am ready to take questions. So if you have any questions, please ask.
Yes, sir. Just a second, sir.
I think, Partha, before the questions come in, I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Most of us have looked at constructivism very technically from the 5E structure and all that.
Yeah.
First time I'm listening to a very practical way of putting constructivism in action, Partha, from you.
Yeah,
Outstanding demonstration of knowledge. And step by step, you've taken us through. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Partha. I leave the floor to others to give us questions. Thank you.
Good evening to one and all. I must say, Partha sir, namaste to you, and truly mesmerizing session, I must say. It was very nice, and I think you have taken us through the learning environment, through constructivist learning, and finally the assessment part of it. And the words which you really placed right at the beginning, that teaching should not control the learning of students, or assessment should not control the learning of students, but it should be an experiential learning all by themselves. That was excellent. And I think the role of experiments, which you took us through, that is observational experiment, then testing experiment, and applying experiment, was really amazing. And there are a couple of questions which has come up from our people who have gathered here for the webinar. And most of it, I think, through your sessions, you have answered them already. But however, I would like to take up one question, which says, how to conduct practicals during this pandemic time, and can you suggest free virtual lab sites to conduct practicals and activities? I think one of them, sir, you have mentioned as fed.colorado.edu. Right. If few more are there, if you can suggest, that would be of a great help to our participants here.
Actually, in India, there is one developed by Government of India and Amrita Vishwavidyalaya, and that is called Online Lab, OLabs. If you search Amrita OLabs in Google, you will find a lot of these experiments, the videos of the experiments, the animations and virtual experiments, all these things can be done online. So you can try that. I believe that that is the best thing matching with our syllabus.
Thank you, sir. And I think there's something called as the dissection lab as well, and My Heart Anatomy, which I have come across, and that may add on, but this was too good. for simulations to be taken on and to manipulate the values and check the understanding. That was nice. And one more thing which has come up is how to monitor the experimental errors, the precautionary measures while conducting experiments in this platform that is online or virtual learning.
Okay, right. This is not possible. To be very frank, experiments are not to be done via virtual environments. Experiments are things which are to be touched, felt, and there are lots of errors that may come up, and none of these errors are there in the virtual environment. So I am agreeing with all of them who think that experimental science is not possible via virtual environment. But one thing is possible, that is nowadays, but it is not related to labs. In higher research labs, people are using Internet of Things. That is, they are connecting their labs, the operation of their instruments from their home. So from home, they are actually operating those instruments in the lab, and they are working and giving the results in the computer. So that is possible, but that is not doing away with the lab instruments. So in the end, it is not possible to conduct real experimental things virtually.
Thank you, sir. And one more question, I think during your session you have already answered, but still I would like to take it up. Should we go beyond CBSE textbook and take the input from various boards such as ICSE and IGCSE to create interest in physics?
That is actually what is there in a textbook. Sometimes tell us that, sir, the NCERT textbooks are so thin, and in the market I get so thicker books and so many things. Actually, textbooks are good textbooks if and only if those textbooks are guiding the students to think further. If a textbook is trying to confine a student within its pages, then that is not a good textbook. That's why these questions are self-answering questions.
Very true, sir. Constructive methods of teaching which facilitates the approach to application-based questions. I think you have taken us through the couple of multiple questions also, but
Right.
A little more light on this, sir. Through application-based questions, how do I use constructive methods of teaching?
Actually, if we are teaching in a constructivist way, what are we actually doing? We are not pouring things from our container to their container. We are allowing them to ask questions, more questions, collaborate, think, and answer, and decide. So if a student is doing that, then your questions will also be like that. If you ask a student, suppose a question, I'm asking a question, state Archimedes' principle. Sometimes we find that some teachers think that this is a very sacred principle, and this should be written exactly what is written in a book. Did Archimedes write it in English? Archimedes wrote it in his language, maybe in Greek or Latin. So how do I know that what was the right language that Archimedes put it? So the question is not putting the right comma, right full stop in the right place. The question is whether the right spirit of the principle is being communicated or not, whether the basic concept of the principle is there in the answer or not. We call that the constructivist way of evaluation, the constructivist way of answering and questioning. Say, for example, if I ask a constructivist question, it will be something like that. Suppose a 10-gram body is floating in water. What is the mass of displaced water? A 10-gram body is floating in water. What is the mass of displaced water? Obviously 10 gram. So the question is, if a student memorizes Archimedes' principle, that student may not be able to answer this question. But if a student has himself or herself done the whole exercise, that student will never be doing anything wrong in such questions. So I believe that this constructivist teaching and learning allows us to frame questions of very interesting type.
So one last question I would like to ask you. Suppose a concept has a hypothetical answers, be it when the child is studying Newton's third law of motion, or be it the same question when he has to learn about normal reaction force as well as the downward force. If he comes up with a hypothetical answer, then how would we make it more constructive to get back to one common answer where the child will carry it back home?
Actually, if I understand it correctly, hypothetical answer means, is it something that the child is trying to communicate in his or her own language, but it is not in the proper scientific language? Exactly, are you trying to mean that?
Yes, sir. That's what is mentioned.
Right. So in that case, in our system of education, when the answer sheet is in front of me, it is very difficult to judge whether the child is actually in the right place to understand this concept or not. But in all those cases, if we get some opportunity to ask further question to the child, if there is any scope of any conversation, if I ask the child some more questions, not telling the answer, just a question, and whether by the questioning method, I find that the child is being able to arrive at the right thing that I am actually looking for, then I believe that the child gets the right kind of reward. Otherwise, in our system, it is very difficult to really judge this kind of a child.
Thank you so much, sir. And I'm just checking if there are any few questions from Facebook. I have not been able to gather anything, sir. I think they've all been full of praises to you. And I must say, right from the go, from the simplest question which you started off, to the final part where you said it is all about designing and constructing their own formulas and they can come up with many more. You know, you've taken us through lower order thinking to higher order thinking, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. And if there are...
Thank you for having me, and it's a privilege for me, and I will remember this throughout my life.
Over to Vasanti ma'am, in case if anybody wants to ask something, they can go ahead, I suppose. Geeta ma'am, Vasanti ma'am.
Basically, I think I want to thank Partha, and I know Partha what he can deliver for us. And thank you, Partha, for accepting my invitation and coming to this meeting today and enlightening so many of the science teachers. I sat through the whole thing with PRT because learning from Partha is a lifelong learning and experience. Many of my teachers are here, Partha, today, and I'm sure they have lots of takeaways from you. God bless you, Partha, with many more such contributions to society. God bless you. Thank you, Partha.
Thank you. Thank you.
And can I just ask one more question, sir? Just the last question, because it being pandemic and many of us from grade 12 as teachers have raised this question, how can physics be taught in this pandemic scenario for grade 12, especially when it involves a lot of practicals?
Actually, it is dependent on designing the presentation. In my presentation, I have involved quite a few experiments. And some experiments are real experiments that I have done myself. And one experiment, there are several other experiments that can be done. And some experiments are virtual experiments with the spring that can also be done, incorporated into the presentation. So the teacher need to incorporate several things into the presentation. And another thing is that if you remember that when I was hanging something on the spring and the spring was getting stretched, I put a scale near it. And I can ask the students, tell me what is the increase. So in this way, during the class, I can design things where I can take our students through certain experimental scenarios. But all said, one thing is to be kept in mind, that such virtual system is no replacement for the face-to-face collaborative learning that we used to have. So we hope that very soon we will be having such system back, and the real true learning will be there for our children.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
So could I just take 1 minute of yours? Sir, you spoke about JEE exams and children concentrating on those entrance exams.
Yeah.
And that is actually having a lot of adverse effects on the subject itself, where I think students are just preparing the last few months for CBSE exams, where it is practical oriented and subjective. And they undergo a lot of stress also.
Right.
And I think most of us know that this is not right.
Right.
As teachers. So as teachers, can't we do something to change the system of this entrance and JEE and JEE? It has become part of science education, and it is very stressful, and children are actually opting not to take up science only because of this pressure, as what I have noticed.
Yes, I agree with you completely, but there are very little that we can do. Actually, we the teachers can do. Even the professors of IITs have very little to intervene. I have already told you that with this force concept inventory 30 questionnaire, I visited different IITs, and it is by the help of my colleagues over there, I was able to take the responses of the students of IITs, and the response was not very happy, made us happy, though their answer was not good. Although they cracked the IITs,
Yes.
they got several ranks, but in this force concept inventory, their performance was not very encouraging.
Yes.
So when we talked about this thing with the teachers also expressed that these students are trained in a very, very wrong way to answer questions. However, I don't know whether we can, because Professor Joshpal voiced his concern about this. Other scientists have also voiced their concern about this. But this being a huge money-making business nowadays,
Yeah, education, we have to do something to get out business from education, sir, if we have to get science subjects across.
I don't know whether there is any way out of this, but still, as teachers, we have to fight. I fight in my own way.
Okay.
And if some alternative, better things can be placed before the children, I think they are intelligent enough to accept that. With that kind of hope, we have to work now.
Yeah. So if at all, if there is something that we can do, hope we all get to know about it as physics teachers. I would like to be part of it.
Okay, I will certainly let you know.
Yeah, sure, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. I think we have had a wonderful session from Mr. Partha. Thank you so much. We just didn't know how 2 hours zipped by. It was so mesmerizing. On behalf of Bangalore Sahodaya School Complex, I take this opportunity